Viral y en el OMExpo Madrid. En su ponencia nos va a invitar a cuestionar la típica estrategia defensiva que muchos anunciantes tienen en social media, que es hay que estar en social media para evitar que nos critiquen o controlar las críticas. Él en realidad nos va a dar una visión de las oportunidades más positivas que el medio ofrece. Nos va a mostrar cómo conseguir verdaderos followers de la marca, verdaderos seguidores de la marca a gran escala y cómo establecer un verdadero canal de comunicación y de conversación con ellos. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid I will also speak in English because I don't speak Spanish, which I'm very embarrassed by, but I hope you can understand most of what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to you. I'll begin with marketing. You all know how marketing works. There's lots of really smart people, agency people who wear very nice suits. They get together in a room and they decide just how the message that they want to use, how it needs to look, in order so that it can go right into the brain of the target audience. That's what marketing people do. They design this one message that is so compelling and so interesting that it hits right, the brain of the marketing people want to sell to. And this is actually officially recognized as a psychological approach. In psychology and in social sciences, this is called behaviorism, or neo-behaviorism. The approach is organized so that you say, okay, if I want to influence a population, there can be rats or there can be humans, doesn't matter. This is the rules, or this is the process I need to follow. I have a stimulus. Let's say we have rats in a cage. I have a stimulus. I do something to them. Then their organism does produce some response to that, and then that response is visible afterwards because the animal shows that response. So this approach really has a lot in common with, playing with puppets. It's about finding the right strings to pull so that the people you want to influence do exactly what you want them to do. That's why you design the message and you try to do it so that the stimulus you put out works just precisely at the right time, so that people do what you want them to do. They react to your communications message in a way that your marketing goals are fulfilled. The thing with that is that this approach has worked wonderfully for decades. Marketing people have primarily used this media channel to use that approach. They put out the stimulus, they design the marketing message, we all see it, it works in our brains, and then we produce a response. Because we go buy the product, or because we say to market researchers that we think the brand is more likable, or any of those things that marketing people do to find out whether they have the response that they wanted. So this has worked wonderfully for many decades and has helped large industries grow into what we know they are today. So I'm not here to say that this is a bad idea. It's just an old idea. It's an idea that we've been using for decades now, and it doesn't matter if you work on a television commercial or whether you try to improve an online banner that you have. It's always the same thing. You have your banner, and there's a little star on it that says "click here," and you think, oh, we might make that little star larger. We might make it bigger on the banner. So you have another little stimulus, and then we all surf the web, and now you have a click-through rate that isn't 0.2% but 0.4%, so that's your response. Everything that traditional marketing does is based on that model. Stimulus, organism, response. Now the problem is there's so much of it. There's so fucking much of this type of advertising, this type of marketing communications that some people get afraid that they might not be, able to use this effectively much longer. And not only because there's so much of this, but because, and this is the scariest thing, consumers are starting to pay so much more attention to what their friends have to say than advertising. So it's not only that that tool is getting fairly old, even though it still works in many cases, but it's getting old. It's also that we as consumers are in what's going on. So we started to pay more and more attention, not so much to advertising, but to our friends. And we do this online, and we do this offline. So that's why I'm here to talk about word of mouth. The idea that the old ways of just pushing messages as stimulus into your target audience and letting them react to that and calling that marketing is maybe no longer sufficient. I'm not saying you should stop that, but it's not the only thing that you can do. If you talk about word of mouth, one thing is really interesting. A lot of people are really interested in what happens in the social media space. Facebook, blogs, etc. So many people are talking about that nowadays. You have to bear in mind that the overwhelming majority of all word-of-mouth communications do not happen on the social web. They happen outside, face-to-face, in bars, restaurants, around the dinner table. We conducted studies and did research and found that around 5% of word-of-mouth is online, 95% of word-of-mouth is offline. And it's only changing very slowly. It's not like everybody started to post everything they ever thought about the product on Facebook and their blog and start talking about it. This is just a little add-on that came in addition. I think many people get so interested in that because for the very first time in their lives, the marketing people can actually see what people are saying. But they only see the little part that's online. The major part happens offline. So, yes, you can maybe worry about somebody writing something negative on a blog about your product or brand, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna destroy your company. Those are little things that happen, and even the large stories like, there is a case study in the US, United Breaks Guitars, where a guy saw out of the window of the airplane that he was in that the people who were handling his luggage were throwing his guitar and breaking it. And he turned that into a song and a video, and it was seen 7, 8, I don't know how many million times. The fact is, no one knows whether United Airlines sold a single ticket less because of that. So it's still a place where you can experiment with these things, and if something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. And again, the major part, most of what happens in the offline world. Now the interesting thing is, how do you work with this? What do you do? The traditional approach to advertising looks a bit like this. You take a message, you try to make it big and funky, you try to find your audience, and then you go for it. That's what advertising really is. Sometimes it works, you hit them all, and sometimes you don't hit a single one. Depends sometimes on luck, and sometimes on how good your aim is. So these things play a role. And if you work with word of mouth, it's more like that. Yes, you play your ball, you play it, but then everyone else has something to say about that. Other people play it along, and you need to take them on board and make sure that those people who could influence the communications process have something to say also, and make sure that they are the key players in this. If you want to understand the principles of how word-of-mouth marketing works, the best is to go back to what marketing was in the first place. What is marketing? Now, this guy here in the brown jacket, he does marketing. He makes all the decisions that are needed to bring the product to the market. He decides which products to bring, he decides how much they cost, he decides where he stands on the market, he decides a lot of things that have nothing to do with advertising, but all of them are marketing. And the important thing is, when it comes to communications, he actually talks to a person. And the nice thing about this is, she can talk back. He will listen when she has a question, and he can answer things that you can never do with a television commercial. So the history of marketing looked like this for thousands of years, I would say. This is how marketing was. And it meant that a personal relationship was built between the guy who was trying to sell and the woman who was trying to buy. And this personal relationship is something really precious because it leads to the fact that she knows more about the company than she knew before. She knows whether she can trust them, she has built a relationship with the person, and that has an impact on what she will do right afterwards. She talks to someone else about the experience because she knows something about the guy. She looked him in the eye, she built some sort of link with that person in those over here because he told me. He sings them a lullaby at night, and that's why his onions are nicer and taste better than the other onions. Who knows? Maybe he has a good story. So this is the stuff that can only happen when you have a real dialogue between people. The problem, and of course, you know, when she does that, this type of dialogue can spread on. Other people will learn about the onions and the lullaby. So, in order to create these links, though, you need that personal relationship. And the problem with that has been described by this man, Professor Dunbar, who researched about how we build relationships. He looked at brain sizes, he looked at primitive tribes and tried to find out how can we build relationships, how do we interact with people. And the thing that he found was that every one of us has the mental capacity on average to deal with about 150 people. So, you know, if you think about someone who's really close to you, maybe your boyfriend or husband or wife or whatever, and someone who's really far from you, someone who walks down the street and you say, oh, I remember that guy's name, and you can have a conversation. Dunbar says we can do this with 150 people. Now, if you're in mass marketing and you need to sell to millions of consumers, then of course this approach doesn't work so well. You know, I talked about you need to build relationships with people who talk to each other. If we can only talk to 150 people and do that in a meaningful way, that's good for the little shop down the corner on the street, but it's not going to work for a company that maybe wants to sell to all of Spain or all of Europe. And this is where it gets really interesting with the internet. The internet allows us to move in the way we build our relationships with people from 150 people to at least 1,500. If each and every one of you thinks about what they can do with an email account, a blog, maybe a Twitter account, an account with Facebook, and one on LinkedIn, I think you will all agree that it is absolutely possible to have a relationship with 1,500 people with those tools, or maybe even with 10,000 people. It is possible because the digital memory helps us remember who people are, remembers our communications with them, and allows us to that way make sense of what we, interact with people way more than 150. So the cool thing about the web, that's what I think is interesting in terms of word of mouth, is that it allows us to scale up what you used to be able to do only in a single shop. As a single person, you can now not only speak to 150 people, but to 1,500. Even more than that. And if you do this right, if you understand that people are parts of networks, people don't live in isolation. All of us, we talk to other people all the time. And if you realize this, and you say, okay, I can have lots of relationships with lots of people, who do I pick? You have to look very closely whom you want to involve in this. You have to make sure that you don't invest this energy, because it does cost energy, on anyone who's not interested in you. People who say, I don't want to hear about your chewing gum, and walk away. You need to do this with those people who really want to hear from you. But when you do, this can have very interesting effects, because those people can then infect, and the people around them spread the message to others. That is essentially the idea of word-of-mouth marketing, and what looks like this in theory looks like that in practice. People get enthusiastic about the fact that they become part of the process, that they become part of the marketing dialogue, and finally they will organize coffee tables with your product as the hero. In our campaigns we get this all the time. This is not an exception, this is the rule. So that's what we do at TRND, and I'm just going to talk about 4 rules that we have identified how to make this work. They come both from our experience in running over 200 campaigns in Europe with this, but they come also from my research which I've done in this field. Because of course the question is, once I have found those people I want to involve in my marketing process, what do I do with them? Many of you might run a Facebook site, and you say, a Facebook page, and you say, well, I have my fans, but now what? What am I going to do with them? And this is, I think, where these things come in as interesting. The first thing that you have to bear in mind is meaning. People do not want to participate in marketing processes that are about nothing else but selling. If you go to someone and say, you know, you're important for my marketing communications, I want you to do word of mouth for me, because then we sell more, that's not going to work. People don't want to help you sell more stuff. So, first meaning. Second, choice. People need to make the decision on their own to join you. You can't force them. I'll speak about each one in detail afterwards. Next one is competence. When you want people to join your marketing process, you want them to become influentials in your favor, then you need to make them understand that they are important for you. People know more about your product most of the time than you do, because they use it and you often don't. Consumers know a lot about products. They know, so much that marketing departments can learn a lot from them. So telling them that, making sure they understand that you appreciate them, that's the third thing. And the fourth is impact. So meaning is the first one. It doesn't have to be that meaningful, but the point is that you come up with something that makes people want to join you. And one thing could be very simple. It could be that you say, we want to get better. We need help from those on our Facebook page, on our blog, on our platform, wherever they are, to improve something, to get better at what we do. We thank you for your business so far, but we know that you can tell us how to get better. That's a very simple way of creating meaning for people, because that's something that people want to join. The next thing is choice. You cannot force people into this relationship. You will only get good results from people who communicate for you if you allow them to make that decision themselves. That's key. That's why the social web is so great, because people can come to you. If somebody comes to you and says, I want to read your blog, I want to be a fan, or I like your Facebook page, that's the first indication that they might be interested in you. When we run our campaigns, we go a lot further. We run really elaborate application procedures where people have to convince us actively that they have to be part of this marketing project and that we need to include them because they are really motivated about this. You can go really far in trying to get people to prove to you how motivated they are. It must be their decision. What's a really bad idea is to go and say, oh, we have this service, we're going to buy, 100,000 Facebook fans. That is, to be frank, real bullshit. Because you cannot do anything with those people. They didn't come to you because they like you. They come to you because, someone came up with a funny mechanism that makes it so. The point is that rather have 5,000 people who are your fans, with whom you can really do stuff, than 100,000 who are not really interested. It's not necessarily a numbers game. The question is what you do with them. The third thing, competence, is make what's in their brains part of the process. Let them tell you what they know. Invite feedback from them and make sure that they can, feel appreciated, feel value. It's the old ways of marketing is you just throw stuff at people. You throw an ad at them and you hope there's a response. This is different. This is real interaction where people actually have to say something to you and you need to show them that you are interested in this. And finally, what I said about impact, that's really important. Making sure that they not only understand their competence is interesting, what they have to offer is interesting to you, but finally, you will listen to them. If they all say that this certain aspect about the product is really bad and doesn't work, it would be really cool if you changed that thing about the product. That's a very big change. A very small change can be that you say, we're going to launch a new microsite. We're going to launch a new microsite that does this, and that. Now we have 3 designs. Which design should we use? Usually that's not a very painful decision. It's a question of taste anyway. So you give them 3 designs and let them vote. When that website goes up, you send them an email and say, thanks so much for your vote. We followed your recommendation. Actually, inside the company, we would have liked to use version A, but you chose version B, so it is version B. Make sure that they understand they're part of the process and they actually get to say something and get to change something so that they can really identify with the process. Now, one thing, when talking about all of this, is really important that you might come across is the question of involvement. This is a sentence that you can hear often when it's about, the way campaigns are organized. Yes, we have an iPhone, and for an iPhone there's so much word of mouth, or a new car. People love to talk about cars, but hey, this is a cleaning product. That's a low involvement product. No one's going to talk about a low involvement product. This is a wrong concept. I would argue that the idea of low involvement products and high involvement products comes from a time when marketing people just didn't know their stuff. It is not true that the cleaning product is a low involvement product. If any one of you has ever gone to qualitative research, that's the type of research where you sit in a market research studio behind a mirror, and on the other side of the mirror, they can't see you, are 8, housewives and housemen who talk about, for instance, cleaning products. You will know that they are capable of talking about cleaning products for an entire day. And they don't get bored of it. They talk about this. They have things to say about how to clean the kitchen and the sofa and the bathroom and all the rest of it. They will talk about cleaning the house for 8 hours straight. Now that is not a low involvement product. That's people who get really into this stuff. The point is that we only think products are low involvement products because we personally think they're low involvement. I have to be very frank. I do not care about cleaning products personally. I don't. I could not sit in a room and talk for 8 hours. The point is, many people do. So the challenge is finding those people who really get excited about the cleaning product. Because they exist, and I bet every product that's out there has people who get enthusiastic about this. So this task of finding the right people and involving them in a way that is fun for them, that has a lot to do also with who it is and what type of product it is, and making sure that you run a word-of-mouth marketing campaign for a cleaning product with people who get interested in cleaning products. That's the point. That this is, people enjoy that stuff. I was at a conference the other day where a guy spoke about, word of mouth and viral and buzz. And he stood on the stage and he actually said, well, ketchup. Who's going to talk about ketchup? That's low involvement product. I raised my hand and I said, that's bullshit. Think about the grilling season. Think about barbecue. Everybody loves to talk about ketchup. So forget this concept of low involvement, high involvement products. Find out who's involved with your product. That's what's interesting. And that takes me to the last thing that I would like to say. There seems to be a certain obsession with this idea that the brand needs fans on Facebook. It's all about fans. Now, they are no longer called fans. Now it's people who click on the I like button. But still, it's the same idea. What's important to me, I think, is the following. Remind yourselves how you feel when you become fans, and you all do, when the Spanish national football team plays in the World Tournament. Everyone, I come from Germany, everyone in Germany becomes football. I do. I don't watch football, the rest of the time, but when the World Cup comes, or the Euro Cup, I get in there. I become a fan. Now, when the German team doesn't play so well, when they lose, when the trainer makes decisions that I think are very, useful, what kind of a fan am I? I bitch, I shout, I complain, I jump up and scream, and so does everyone else. So when you want fans, bear in mind that real fans can be a pain in the ass. Fans are not people who sit there all day and say, you're so great. You are so great. Let me tell you, you know what? You are great. That's our fans. That's brainless idiots. And that doesn't exist in marketing, and you certainly won't find that on your Facebook page. So if you want fans, go for it. Fans are the best thing in the world for marketing, but don't think that's going to be easy. So much for me. If you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Hello, I would like to know for you how Facebook pages will look like.
Sorry, say again? How?
A perfect Facebook pages, how would it look like?
I have no idea what it looks like, but what I know is how the people behave who run it. I have to say that we at TRD have our own platforms, so we partly use Facebook because we have our own platforms with our own members from which we recruit the participants for our campaigns. So we don't work with Facebook so much, but if you ask me what the perfect Facebook fan page is like, it's one where the people who run it pay attention to those who are on it and who try to make these 4 factors work. Who listen to what people have to say, who provide those who seem really engaged. Let's say you have someone on your Facebook page who posts something every day, a comment. He's there every day, and you start to know this guy. First of all, you have to have the capabilities to know the guy. You have to be watching, otherwise you wouldn't know that he exists, is the first thing. The second thing is, when he's done that for 4 weeks, you might send him a message and say, man, you're with us every day. You want to come over to our company and meet us someday? We want to meet you because you seem to be a real fan. That's just one idea. It doesn't have to be that. There could be someone else who complains every other day on your Facebook page and tells you how much your products suck and all of the things that don't work. Wonderful person to have. I would say the same to him. I would say, we built a little survey just for you to find out where you have these problems, because then we can solve them for you. And by the way, there's 2 things that you always complain about. We can't do anything about them because of this and that. So the question is not what it looks like. The question is what you do with it. That's what I think is interesting. And once you start putting these mechanisms in place, you will get effects that, multiply. The problem that you have with that is, of course, how do you justify to your boss or anyone else in the company that you put so much effort into these individual people? You can only justify this if you say, we speak with 10,000 in a way that makes them speak with another 20, 30 more, and that way we get scale effects. If you can't sell that to other people inside your company, it's going to be difficult. If they just want more fans, that's difficult. But I hope I answered your question. Okay. No other question? Should I ask questions? Who is working with word of mouth? I know that the audience is very varied, but you come from all... Who works in marketing? What are the others doing here? Okay, for those of you who work in marketing, how much, who out of you would say that word of mouth and thinking about word of mouth, thinking about consumer recommendations is actually part of your business? Who would say that it is so? Okay. Now, out of those who say it is so, which is like, okay, I'm saying 60 people said 70 they work in marketing, and 8 said that they work with word of mouth. How many of those who work with word of mouth work in business-to-business marketing? Okay? This is interesting because sometimes I get this question when I give a speech where people say, well, if you talk about shampoo and chewing gum and that's what you do, how can business-to-business marketing learn from this? It's the other way around. Business-to-business marketing always had to understand its customers, its clients. If you work in business-to-business marketing, you usually don't have 7 million customers or clients. You have maybe 753, or you know that there's just 40 in the country that can buy from you, or maybe 2,000. So business-to-business marketing has for the longest time already started talking with its clientele and learning from them. So if you know someone who's in business-to-business marketing and you are in business-to-consumer marketing, talk to the business-to-business people because they can teach you a thing or two that will be useful on your Facebook page because they know how to listen. That's maybe an interesting thought for some of you. Any more questions? There's one. Do we have a microphone?
Manage Facebook autonomy. Let's say you're starting out. Would you hire people to administer the account and post different things, or would you just get the people really involved to manage it? I mean, how would you go about starting over?
I would first think about an idea for why I'm having a Facebook page. At the end of the day, my personal conviction is that any marketing on the social web only makes sense if it's made to create word of mouth and buzz. I think that is the only way, the only reason to do marketing on the social web. Now, if you want to do something on your Facebook page, you need to think about whom do I want to involve, whom do I want to reach. So the question is, who are your perfect participants on your platform to, create those effects that you want to create? And then everything else follows from that. You need to make sure that they find your Facebook page. You need to find out who on your Facebook page works like that. Things like that. Things like the people you want to have multiply your message. And then once you have found them, you need to make sure that they feel invited to participate in the process, that they feel empowered, that they get to have a say in things, that they can vote on things, etc. And that you listen to them, that you provide this kind of feedback that I spoke about. You might need a few people who run this. It's not for free just because making a Facebook page doesn't cost anything with Facebook. Doesn't mean that running one is free also. You need to operate that, just like you need to operate a call center. So you need to have people that do this. And then my recommendation would be that at the end, you always make sure that some of those people leave Facebook and come to your own database. Facebook is nice, but to me, Facebook is an entry door to your own platform. At the end of the day, if you want to run your marketing programs in a way that makes sense, you need to make sure that you have the data yourself. So I would say, to answer your question, make sure that you understand, first of all, where you're going, what you want to accomplish, then find a process of finding those people on your platform that can do this for you, organize a dialogue with them, and then at the end make sure that you collect some of their addresses because you already know that these people are active and like you. So it makes sense to say to them, this was fun, if you want to sign up with this or read our blog, here's what we have for you. Here's a newsletter that we send out to only you who are part of this project so that they feel like VIPs, they feel special, and they say, that's a cool company who wants to talk to me. Did that help?
Making sure there wasn't like a magic secret or a silver bullet or something.
The silver bullet is difficult. I think the silver bullet is the one thing that I think is valid in all cases is that the social web allows us to scale out the dialogue. I had a meeting 2 days ago where someone said to me, oh yes, running a Facebook page is so much effort as opposed to an automatic mailing system. Of course, you can send, with an email distribution system, you can send emails to millions of people and hardly have any effort with that. The point is, you're comparing it to the wrong thing. You can compare the email system with television and print ads. What you need to compare the Facebook page with is a shop on the corner of the street. And if you compare that, if you try to have the same type of engagement and interaction in your little corner shop down the street, in the little branch office, in wherever sales shop that you have, as you can have on a Facebook page, that costs so much more. So you need to make sure that you compare it with the right, with the right other tool that you use. So the bullet-wise, I would just say the social web allows us to scale up dialogue and real interactions with people, and if you're willing to invest in that, you will have returns.